Hello friends, and welcome to Relevant GRC. In this video, we are diving into a practical guide on implementing ISO 27001 step by step. Whether you are just starting your information security management system or looking to strengthen what you already have, this video will walk you through real-world strategies, scenarios, templates, and tips you can actually apply in your organization. If you are new to the channel, do subscribe and turn on the notification to stay updated with future videos. So let's get started. Let's begin with a high-level understanding of ISO 27001, its structures and controls. Friends, this is going to be part of a series of videos I'll be making on how you can master ISO 27001 implementation. If you have already implemented ISO 27001 in your organization and looking to mature the program, look no further. This video and the series of videos to come will help explain to you how to master and mature your ISO 27001. If you're also new to implementing ISO 27001 and do not know where to start, look no further. This series of videos would also help you to understand ISO 27001 and then master the practical approach in implementing ISO 27001. Without ado, let's begin with what ISO 27001 is. ISO 27001 is a globally recognized standard of information security management. It specifies a requirement of a systemic and structured approach for the information security management by protecting sensitive information within an organization. Mind you, ISO 27001 requires every organization to establish an information security management. ISO 27001 is made up of two main components. We do have the clauses and then the annexure. So the clauses is made up of clauses 4 to clause 10, which are the mandatory activities within the standard that defines the main requirement for establishing, implementing, maintaining, and continually improving the ISMS. You need to be able to understand that in the requirement of ISO 27001, there are key phrases that you need to be able to pay attention to. Under the clauses 4 to 10, any word that you come across that says shall, that means that is mandatory, and hence you need to be able to follow and adhere to those particular requirements in the standard. So this is a typical breakdown of the clauses 4 to 6, as you could see in your screen. Clauses 4 to 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. These are the key structure and the mandatory standard requirements that you need to be able to adhere to in the requirement. So let's move to the annexure. The Annex A, structured in 4 domains. We do have the organization, we do have the people, we do have the physical, and we do have the technical controls. Friends, I am hoping that you do understand basic theories around ISO 27001, and hence I'm not going to be boring you with more theories with regards to implementing ISO 27001. We are using this video to dive into the practicality on how you can master the act of implementing ISO 27001 and also mature your program. So these are some of the documentation that you need to be able to provide with regards to ISO 27001. This documentation aligns with the mandatory standard in the clauses 4 to 10. You have the scope document that follows the clauses 4. You have the information security policy, which also follows clause 5. You have the risks document, which follows the clauses 6 as well as clause 8. You have statement of applicability, which follows clause 6. Under clause 6, you have 6.1.3d, where you need to provide the scope statement of applicability. You have your internal audit document, which falls under your clause Clause 9. You do have monitoring and measurement, non-conformity logs, your improvement and metrics, which also both falls under the clause 9 and clause 10. So these are the documentation typically you need to be able to provide under the clauses 4 to clause 10. So in this video, friend, we are going to be able to look at a case study of how we can be able to actually implement ISO 27001. Our case study is going to be based on an organization called DataCrest. DataCrest is an organization based in the United States of America, and then it has remote staff in Europe, Asia, and Africa. This organization that we are looking at is a cloud-based data analytics solution software company where their main task is to provide healthcare institution and also handle sensitive information for these particular healthcare providers that they are working with. Before we start implementing ISO 27001 with DataCrest, let's look at what ISO 27001 certification process is all about. The certification process is where an organization demonstrates that their ISMS meets the ISO 27001 standard. This is typically done by an independent organization, normally known as the certification body. Once everything is good with the certification body, they are going to be issuing you a certificate for the next 3 years, whereby they are going to do an interval of annual follow-ups. Getting certified in the first place, what does it all entail? There are stages of audits that are going to occur when you are getting certified. These stages are typically stage 1 audit, stage 2 audit. During these 2 stages, you get a report that is going to detail findings that arose from what? The audit. So what are those findings that are going to be what arose from these audits? Typically, what we do know is that we do have what we call the major non-conformity. We do have the minor non-conformities, and then we do have what opportunities for what improvement. The major non-conformities indicate a major problem with your ISO 27001 implementation. Normally, I always say this is a red flag because you have been able to omit certain key things or certain key requirements that you need to be able to what implement. I also talk about the minor non-conformities. What is the minor non-conformities? We are talking about minor problems within the organization. This one, it is not quite so bad, but also not good. Normally a yellow flag because you have been able to implement it, but you have not implemented it to the full scope of the requirements that was laid out in the standard. Opportunities of improvement. Here we are looking at what suggestions or recommendations that is being provided by the auditor, typically trying to tell you that this could benefit from what improving your ISMS. One other thing I would be able to tell you is that do not let the auditor raise a major or minor non-conformity unless you fully understand it. Typically, if any non-conformity is raised by an auditor, you could be able to explain or disagree with the auditor that this is not a non-conformity, and then this is what we are doing to make sure that this particular standard or requirement is being adhered to. Let's look at the various stages of audit as we were referring to with regards to getting certified in the first place. So we do have the stage 1 audit, as I earlier mentioned. Stage 1 audit, typically it is what referred to as the documentation audit. Here the auditor is assessing your ISMS design, the readiness, and also making sure that you are ready for the stage 2 audit to take place. So typically you need to be able to make sure that everything under clauses 4 to 10 has been adhered to with regards to stage 1 audit. Here, the documentation that forms part of the management system, as I earlier mentioned, that you need to be able to adhere to or provide certain documentation. This is where those documents are being looked at. Let's look at stage 2 audit. Under stage 2 audit, what are we really looking at? So at stage 2 audit, we are looking at all the things that was done in stage 1, but here we are also looking at into more details. We will typically cover more topics, also look at controls, and also look at the in-scope location, in-scope people. We typically look at everything. But mind you, one of the things that you should be able to understand is that one of the main things that is going to be covered under stage 2 audit is the findings. The findings is one of the things that will be coming up in the stage 2 audit. So you should be able to make sure that every non-conformity that was raised has been addressed in the stage 2 audit. We now move towards stage 3 audit, which is called the surveillance audit. Here, typically, you've already gotten your certificate for the 3 years, but here, this is where the intervals of an annual review of your certificate comes into place. The certification body is going to be looking at whether you still are worthy of the certificate, whether you are still conforming to all the things that you are saying you are conforming, the reason why the certificate was even issued to you at the first place. So the objective is to focus on key areas, corrective actions, continuous improvement, and to make sure that the organization is still worthy of the certificate that was provided to them at the first place. And that is typically what the stage 3 certification audit is all about. Then lastly, we do have what we call the race certification. Under the race certification audit, this is where your 3-year certificate has now come to a halt, and then you need to now get a full assessment of your ISMS. So once this is done, you then issue a new certificate for another new 3 years all over again. Let's look at some of the templates that you need to be able to provide when you are implementing ISO 27001 within DataCrest. So here, this is a project overview document that I developed. I'm using Confluence, but mostly I tell small to mid-sized organizations who do not have the resources or funds to go and buy sophisticated tools like Audit Board, the Vanta, the Drada. You could be able to use Excel spreadsheet. But more recently, the best approach to use is going to be what your SharePoint site, because SharePoint site gives you a lot of flexibility as well as automation that for you to be able to do. So if you are a GLC analyst or a GLC engineer where you are in a small or a mid-sized organization who do not have the money to go and buy the big tools, you could use SharePoint. I'm going to demonstrate how to also use SharePoint, but we are using Excel spreadsheet here for the time being. So we developed this template where we need to be able to provide the project overview. So in providing the project overview, as you could see, we initiate the project. Who initiates the project? The project manager. So they are going to initiate the project. Some organization has this split in a lot of roles and responsibilities. Some others too, the person who initiates the project is going to be the ISMS owner, or the director of GLC or director of compliance. They initiate the project. And then if, for example, you are not implementing this in your organization by an implementer, but you have brought in a consultant, then the consultants are the people that are going to initiate the project. Then you need to define the scope of ISMS. By defining the scope of ISMS, you need to determine the scope of information security management system. You need to also document the context of the organization. So here, as I earlier mentioned, this is where we are talking about the understanding what the context of organization is all about. So the organization context of DataCrest is set out in the following section. Given the fast-moving nature of business and the market in which it operates, the context will change over time. So here we have stated what the context of organization is going to be for DataCrest, and then this is going to be documented in the scope document as it was already defined above. So within these two project tasks that we need to perform, these two are going to be defined in what we call the scope document, or even better still, you can call it ISMS or manual, or the ISMS policy, or the ISMS document. So these two are going to be determined in there. The activity, so DataCrest undertakes a wide range of business activities within its target sector, and it's consistently developing new products and services to bring to the market. So here, this is what I was talking to you about, what DataCrest is all about. So you need to be able to talk about the wide range of products and services that DataCrest is providing, and then you need to document it in this task. Now, execution, as I earlier stated, that you need to perform what we call a gap assessment, because if you do not define the scope, you cannot be able to perform a gap assessment. That is where some GLC professionals or consultants are really getting it wrong. You need to always be able to define what the scope is, what is going to be in scope, what is going to be out of scope. Once you're able to define that, you should be able to perform a gap assessment. A gap assessment is just you going through the requirements in the standard and then seeing which one applies to the organization or not. You need to also develop a risk management process. You need to perform a risk assessment, create a risk treatment plan, document risk statement of applicability, the implementation. Here, you now need to be able to document communication procedures, document information security objectives, document information security policies, implement required controls, implement applicable organizational control. So here we are looking at what you need to be able to do to be able to bring your ISMS to life. So these are the controls that we are going to adhere to. As you could see, you need to be able to perform all these things. Once all this implementation is done, you now need to be able to monitor it. You could see I have been able to put this into reference or the perspective of the ISO 27001. And that is why most organizations are not able to know what they need to perform or do at the start or the beginning. And you could see that I do have a start date and the due date and also the task that has been completed. Let's look at the roadmap that emanates from the project plan that I earlier on showed. So this is the roadmap. This roadmap is typically part of the project overview that I showed you. So some people use what we call the Gantt chart. So within the Gantt chart, you'll be able to see all these things. But the roadmap is typically what I explained earlier on, showing you what you have to do with regards to your project. So here, as you could see, the gold talks about the introduction of what you need to do. The blue talks about the execution. The red talks about what you need to implement. The green is talking about your monitoring processes. And then you need to be able to have timelines as well as goals that you need to set once this project roadmap is achieved. So this is all that I have, and then these are the mandatory documentation, as I earlier stated, that you need to be able to provide. This is all the process that you need to be able to understand from the ISO 27001 theory process implementation, the project overview, the roadmap that you need to be able to lay out, and then the documentation that you need to be able to provide. This is all that I am going to be doing for now, and then please do let me know if this video is different from most of the videos that you have watched, and then the subsequent videos we are going to be be diving into details, this documentation, and then the actual processes as I laid out in the project plan, as well as the roadmap. Thank you and see you in the next video.